Well, hello my friends, it's Shawn Petite and welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is the lovely project we're creating today. I'm so happy with it. Here are the supplies that we'll be using in today's project. Super easy project today. I'm working on a 12 by 12 MDF board and I've gessoed it, and now I'm just getting some background color, and I knew that I wanted it to be kind of grayish and neutral. And so I'm just adding some real quick brush strokes here to kind of get some color down. And that lovely kind of gray blue is called Cold Gray by Arteza. One of my favorite colors. And I'm just using an old credit card, and I'm kind of scraping the paint off and moving it around a little bit to kind of get this real kind of rustic feel. And just kind of a different feel background, but because I wanted it, I had the winter solstice in mind, and I was thinking about kind of a gray cloudy sky, and kind of moody and stormy a little bit. So that's kind of the thought process as I was creating this background. And so but I'm also wanting to keep an eye on how dark it is, because I want it to be relatively light because I'm going to have lots of layers, but not too light because I want to do some stenciling on it, and so I want that stenciling to show up, and I want the lightness to kind of come from the stencil. So this is the Nordic pattern, and I chose it because of the inspiration and kind of that winter feel, kind of cozy winter feel. And so it was perfect. It just made me so happy. I just love the pattern, and it just subtly shows up in the background, which is perfect. So I'm going to give it just a little bit of grungy age, and I didn't want to do too much because I didn't want it to feel warm. I wanted it to feel cool, and that's why I'm using Van Dyke Brown, because it's got kind of a burnt, it's kind of like, it's very much like raw umber. It's got kind of a smoky, burnt kind of undertone, almost gray or black, and that's what I wanted, because I didn't want to go too warm for the background. And so I watered down that Van Dyke Brown, and that Van Dyke Brown is by Arteza. And then I'm just coming back over it with some gesso on my credit card to kind of continue that kind of cold gray sky kind of feeling. And just kind of layering up that background. And I love this background. It turned out perfectly. And so I'll just go back and forth with my credit card and my gesso for a little bit to kind of get just the right background. So all the supplies will be listed on the blog, and the link to the blog is down below in the YouTube description box. So here's all of the papers that I'm using. And I used the Vintage Papers collage pack, and then there's a new collage pack which is called Rusty Metal. But I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of the video. But those two collage packs are going to be on sale. And I knew I wanted a really kind of I wanted an element, and I knew that I wanted it to kind of look like a tile. I'm not exactly sure why, but I'm so glad I did this. And so I just stenciled out on one of the vintage papers and added a touch of that gray, and I stenciled out with the Van Dyke Brown and kind of grungied it up a little bit. And I love how it looks, and I love how it looks when it went down. But I'm just kind of watering that paint down and kind of getting some smudginess on there. You know, it probably would not matter in the end, but you always create that layer as if it's the only layer. Then I thought that I wanted to have some more of that Nordic pattern, And I created this, but once I got it together, I wasn't real crazy about it because of the teal was too teal for me. I wanted more neutral. But I continued on this page to kind of grungy it up because I thought maybe I would use bits and pieces of it. And I didn't end up using, I don't think, any of this paper, but it goes in the stash, and I've got some good stuff for another project. But I tried to use that colored paper, but it just didn't work. So now I'm just going to assemble everything. I'm using Liquitex matte gel to put everything down because I didn't want a whole lot of wrinkling in my paper, and wanted it to be somewhat smooth. And I'll just kind of do the dance a little bit here to put the papers together, find the right spot for each one. And you can see that rusty metal paper. Oh, the collage pack is awesome. And it's interesting because the little bits of this rusty metal paper show up in some of the most delightful ways at the end. That number 7 is also from the Rusty Metals collage pack. So I wanted to lighten up just a little bit the background because my focal point was going there, but I didn't want to do too much because I love those kind of spotty bits on the paper. They didn't end up showing in the end, but that's okay. I did print my focal point and some writing on some tissue paper to add to the piece. And I love using tissue paper because you can put it down and it doesn't take away from the layers underneath. I switched to fluid matte medium to put my tissue paper down because if you use gel medium, it's too thick and it'll tear your tissue paper. So now I've got the Paris Flourish stencil out, and I'm using some Nova Color texture paste to stencil out my image. And I'm using white because I wanted, again, that cool kind of cold tones on my piece. I'll tone them down just a little bit, but kind of representing winter snow and that kind of thing. Now I'm going to bring in some color, and purple to me is a great color for winter because I always think of it as like in the sky when it's getting ready to snow, there's kind of this little bit of purple haze. So I love purple for winter, anything. I love purple in general, the right purple. And I used 2 different colors of purple. I used Golden's High Flow and Liquitex. This is actually called Muted Gray. And I just love the color. Love it. And I wanted some color, but I didn't want it to be too much because, again, going for that kind of icy, cold theme. Then adding just a bit more texture paste, Nova Color texture paste, just again to resemble some snow. Going to bring just a little bit more color in, not a ton, with my soft pastels, and do a little bit of shading and staying in those kind of neutral, cold, cool colors. I'm adding just a tiny bit of Van Dyke Brown to, again, kind of age it, add some depth. It needed some contrast. Adding some more of that Arteza Cold Gray. Just little bits here and there. Then I'll pull it back just a tiny bit because I don't want it to be too much. I don't want it to kind of take away from the beauty that's already going on. My graphite stick and just adding a few little scribbles here and there. And then always got to have some black. Some Liquitex acrylic ink in white, just for, again, that kind of snow effect. And then I added this little guy because it needed, I needed to feel some balance between some of the lighter papers. And I know I'm covering up some of my soft pastels, but we'll come back and put those in. And then my word for the piece, solstice. And that's really it. Super easy project. And I hope you stick around for the conversation at the end, because I really did a deep dive into what solstice means and some synonyms to solstice in, you know, famous Shawn style. I did a deep dive into it and really found some wonderful meanings and applications for me and maybe for you. So again, all the supplies will be listed on the blog, and the link to the blog is down below in the YouTube description box. And thank you so much for joining me. If you enjoyed today's project, subscribe and like and all that wonderful stuff. And I will see you next week. Well, hello my loves, and happy Sunday to you. I'm just finishing up my last little bits of marks here. I am putting down just a little bit of more gray around the edges here, just a little bit. And where were the other marks that I wanted that there? All right. Perfect. Just perfect. Love, love, love my solstice. Trying to decide if I wanted a little bit of shading in and around here or not. Possibly a little bit. It's like, you know, that you don't know when to kind of stop kind of thing. That's where I'm at. And I just need to let it be. And then I can kind of come back to it if I need a little bit more. But I think that's pretty fantastic. So happy Sunday to you. And I hope your Sunday is going well. Love this. Went over everything in the video. Just real quick, I wanted to let you know that these 2 sheets, this is what I used here, will be free to you in the resource library. And then I have new collage pack out, and I don't have all of them printed, but they're rusty metals And then I made up this kind of number sheet as well for that collage pack with the rusty metal. And then I used the Vintage Papers collage pack. Those two will be on sale this week, even including the new one. And then the stencils, of course, that I used, the 3 stencils, the Paris, the tile, and I don't even remember what the other one was. Oh yeah, the Nordic pattern. Did that on purpose. So those will all be on sale, collage packs and the stencils. What else do I have to tell you? I don't think anything, which is kind of nice. It's been a slower, calmer week this week, and I have enjoyed every minute of it. So this piece, so my inspiration, I should grab my notes. I just kind of turned on the camera and started talking. Okay, so the inspiration for this piece, so I really wanted to do something like for winter solstice, and I thought, well, maybe I should do a Sunday inspiration. And I thought about doing a journal page, and I wasn't sure. So, but I had been kind of thinking about this. It was on my kind of list of things to do for Sunday inspirations. And I thought, I don't really know what the inspiration is with the story or anything like that. And so I looked up the word solstice. And solstice literally means, of course, we talk about winter solstice, which is the shortest day of the year, or the longest day of the year when it's summer solstice, I suppose. And that's actually coming up. And solstice, the actual meaning of the word solstice means to stand still. And so then I kind of, in my fashion, I went off down a deep dive of that, and I looked up the synonyms for stand still and solstice, and one of the synonyms was like hibernation. And then one was dormant, and one was like standby. And so I went into, of course, the definitions of each of those. And but solstice means to stand still. And I immediately was like, oh, Lord, that sounds so good, to just be still for a little bit, just for a little bit. And then I went into, I looked at dormant, and it said to be present, but hidden or invisible for a while. And I thought, oh, all the meanings were so great, especially for right where I'm at, and maybe where you're at, and where we're at in this crazy season. And then standby means to be kept in reserve for use when needed. And then what I thought was the most interesting was hibernation. And the definition for hibernation for computers was, I'm just trying to, the hibernation for computer, it allows for the parts for the computer to run, but it shuts down parts of the computer so that when startup happens, it doesn't take as long. And so it conserves power without losing the content or memory. And all of these were so good, because I was truly reminded that we all need a solstice. I really need a solstice. Otherwise burnout happens, or frustration, or exhaustion, or all the words that you can think of. We all need a solstice. We all need the chance to stand still, even if it's just for a tiny little bit. But the definition of to conserve power without losing the content or memory, So we're conserving power, we're hibernating. I'm thinking about all these things that sound really good right now, is to stand still and to kind of conserve energy and rest and renew and conserve my energy, so that when I come out of hibernation, when I begin to re-energize, that I have this energy. And what was the other one? To reserve for use when needed. So we're reserving our creativity, our energy, our thoughts, our all those things, so that when we need them, they are available, and they're readily available. So whether you can identify with solstice or hibernation or standby or dormant, we all need that pause. We all need that pause in all of the things that are going on. We need to be able to kind of shut down for a minute or two or a week, and just kind of reserve our energy and renew and refresh, so that when we start up, it's not with hesitation, we're ready to go. And I know for me, when I first read Solstice and it said to stand still, it kind of made me uncomfortable and a little nervous, because I'm not good at standing still. I am an overworker, and that's not something to be proud of, and it's something that I work at all the time. But standing still is not in my nature, especially when things feel out of control, or when I don't feel like I have an outcome, or when it's a waiting period. Typically what I do is I just work harder. And the older I get, the less that's working for me. And the more exhausted and frustrated and angry, not even angry, I don't even know. It's just an exhaustion, basically. And I know that I've been feeling it over the last couple of months. And I've just kind of taken a step back this week and done things at a slower pace for me. And not worried about everything being done on time, which is really, really hard. I mean, I met my deadlines, but some of the other things that didn't have a hard deadline, I let some of that go. And I took my solstice for a second and stood still. I hibernated, even if it was just for a couple hours. I stayed in my pajamas for like half the day on last week. By the time you see this, it'll be Sunday, but last Sunday I stayed in my pajamas, and it felt so good. And I have this renewed energy this week. I have a little spring in my step, and I forget always to take my time to rest and rejuvenate. To take my solstice, to stand still. And it's so, so important. And so I want to encourage you today, in the midst of whatever is happening with you, even if you feel like you've been standing still for a while with the pandemic or whatever, maybe you need to take a different standing still. Maybe it's something else for you. But we need that rest. Maybe it's just standing still in your mind and not worrying about things. And I know that's very true for me, because I'm always planning, thinking, overthinking. It is truly my nature, and I fight it and I work at it really, really hard. So this piece was all about my solstice. And so I wanted to create this kind of winter, those cool colors, that kind of icy blue, and this kind of a juniper twig sprig is kind of representative of winter. And just those cool colors and the Nordic pattern in the background. I thought of that for the background because it has that kind of like cozy sweater pattern, and I just kept thinking about being wrapped up in a blanket sitting by the fire, just totally relaxing, reading, just being still. And so the 0 represents 0 things on my task or to-do list. And 7 is for me the number of rest. That's talked about that in scripture, and I've always had 7 as a number for rest for me. It can mean other things, but that's my number for 7 for rest. And so yeah, and the pattern, these patterns here, the Parasol or Paris Flourish stencil, I wanted it to kind of represent snow, but not really be snow-like, because I wanted it to be winter-ish, but not like true snowflakes in winter and that kind of thing. And so that is my pieces of inspiration weaved throughout this piece to really express my solstice, my rest, my hibernation, my going dormant for a second, all of those things, and really kind of nourishing my soul. And when that happens, my creativity, my grace grows, my gratitude grows the second I do it. And why do I fight it? I have no idea. But I want to encourage you today to not fight the rest, that we need it. We need it. And yeah, so that is my winter solstice. All right, my loves, I hope that your Sunday, at least one day, is restful and peaceful. And I hope that you will take your solstice and stand still for a second, just for a second. And how it will take a deep breath and how it replenishes us. Oh, so good. All right, my loves, have a wonderful Sunday, and always, always know that you are loved.